We're live.
All right. Hello, this is Griff, and we're in Humboldt Redwood State Park, which is the super most beautiful park in the whole entire world, according to me. And today we are having another one of our centennial anniversary speaker series, and this one is super, super awesome. And I'm going to tell you how it got started, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers today. So because of COVID, I've been having to do kind of a different interpretation. And one day I was tabling and I was talking about the centennial anniversary, and this woman walks up, and I could tell she was like ear hustling and listening, and she was interested. And she came up and she introduced herself as Ruth Coleman. And I was like, that sounds really familiar. And she says, I was the director of state parks. And so then I fanboyed out. We did a total like cheesy selfie, and we started talking. And she was telling me that she was still doing stuff to help our state parks. And I thought, I get asked this question all the time. People ask me, what can I do for state parks? And so I asked her to jump on to a interview with me, to do a webinar or a Facebook Live, and she agreed. And so then I wanted to bring on a couple folks who I have talked to about how people can help the parks, who have mentored me on how I can help the parks. And so I invited Erin Gates and Teresa Baker. So let me just introduce our panel. Ruth Coleman, who is the catalyst for this, has held positions in the public and nonprofit sector for over 30 years. She joined the California State Parks in 2000, serving as director from 2002 to 2012. So you didn't waste any time when you got involved in state parks. 2 years later, you're the director. That's amazing. Subsequently, Ruth helped launch Sustainable Growers, a nonprofit dedicated to improving the livelihoods of women coffee farmers in Rwanda. As Sustainable Growers' first executive director, Ruth oversaw the growth of the nonprofit, ultimately serving over 37,000 low-income Rwandan women coffee farmers. Thank you very much for that, Ruth. Ruth now serves on the board of California League of Park Associations, Friends of Los Angeles River, Davis Farm to School, and consults with nonprofit organizations. She doesn't sleep, eat, or do anything else. She is that busy, okay? That's a little exaggeration, but not much. Teresa Baker, I've been working with Teresa Baker for years on diversity, equity, and inclusion projects. And it's a very, very important thing to me. It's a very important thing to her. And so we've been collaborating. She set up this documentary called Diversity and Inclusion in Wild Spaces. And I got to make a debut in it and talk about something really passionate, something I'm really passionate about. Teresa has done several of things. We've collaborated on Park Leader podcasts, talking about diversity, inclusion, and a bunch of other things. Teresa works to ensure, this is her bio, works to ensure the next generation of outdoor stewards have greater access to resources and opportunities in their desire to work and protect the outdoors. She does this through government and NGO collaborations and partnerships. Teresa believes that if we come to the work of environmental protection through the lens of not mine, not yours, but ours, we can build a better tomorrow where everyone feels welcome and invited. Teresa also hikes more than anybody I know. So if you're looking for a trail anywhere around the Bay Area, ask Teresa, she'll tell you about it, or she might even be there when you show up, chances are, okay? Erin Gates is also a friend and mentor who has really helped me up my interpret game. She's an interpreter extraordinaire. She's on the board of National Association for Interpretation. So to get on that board, you gotta be pretty good with interpretation. And she's on the board of California State Park Rangers Association Sea Spray. So she also, like Ruth and Teresa, doesn't sleep or eat. She's just completely serving her community all the time. And we really appreciate that. And that's why I thought you three were the perfect people to answer this question. And this is kind of cheesy, and Teresa didn't know I was going to say this, so hopefully she doesn't leave right after she hears me say this. But ask not, I'm going to take JFK's thing and put it down, flip it, and reverse it. Ask not what you can, ask not what only your parks can do for you, but what you can do for your parks. So that's what this talk's going to be. We're going to go to each of our speakers, 5 to 7 minutes. I would love for you guys to help us understand how we can help our parks, not just California state parks, city parks, county parks, national parks. How can we help our parks? So Ruth, since you inspired this when I met you, I would love for you to share your thoughts first.
Sure, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I want everybody to remember how our state parks were first created. We have 280 parks in California. And like if we just take Humboldt Redwoods, we're celebrating its centennial. It was created by the work of several committed individuals. So the thing I want you to remember is that individuals created our parks. It's not huge groups, it is passionate individuals. And so as an individual, you have tremendous agency. So you got to always remember that. When it comes to parks, you have so much that you can offer. So when you think back on these individuals 100 years ago, there's some guy, he makes bird songs and then he creates a trailer and he takes it around the US and he gets people excited about redwoods. And then there were women involved and they were standing in front of the bulldozers. And so it was just this handful of individuals who banded together that created this park. And that story is replicated over and over and over again, 280 times for each of these parks that we all use and love. And so we think once they're created, now they're fine, they're safe, they've been purchased, the boundaries are set, they get developed, and now we get to use them and everything's great. And that's not the case. So what I want to remind everybody is that the protection of these parks is up to every generation. Each generation has to save their parks and has to make sure that they're there for the next generation. We think that they're safe, but they're not. And so I can tell a few quick stories when I was director of really major threats that we were facing. There was a 6-lane toll road that was planned to go through San Onofre State Beach, down the entire watershed. It's the only protected watershed from Ventura to Mexico, and they were going to pave 6 lanes of it. There was a large power line that was proposed, huge high voltage power line for Anza-Borrega Desert State Park. It's a wilderness area, and they wanted to put these massive power lines through it. They wanted to do the same thing through Chino Hills. A mega dairy was proposed next to Allensworth, 15,000 cows within less than a mile of Allensworth State Historic Park. And then just recently, what I've been working on is a threat to Los Angeles State Historic Park, where the McCourt family that owns the parking lots at Dodger Stadium, they want to build a gondola that connects Union Station to Dodger Stadium, and they want to string it right across the middle of LA State Historic Park. And so we've been pushing back against them so that they don't put basically an aerial highway across a state park. In all of these cases, there were times when it feels like we're never going to be able to win this battle because these are really powerful forces against us. They usually have the politics all locked up over your heads. You know, you feel like you're not going to be able to move it. And yet committed individuals get together, they find other friends and other people of like mind, and you just start making some noise and you start figuring out where are your pressure points and where are the different approvals, and you start activating your base and really get out there and fight. And in all of these cases, we've been successful in saving these parks. Even the gondola, they're now proposing to put it just to the south of the park, but not stringing across the middle. And so while we think our parks are safe, they aren't necessarily. And so every park you use, it's up to you to find out what's going on outside of this park, what's happening on the boundaries, what's happening up in the watershed. I want to make sure that I'm active and I'm paying attention so that this park is going to be here for the next generation. Because these do not last forever. We think they are, but they're not. They're often viewed as the path of least resistance. And we have to use our voices to make them the path of greatest resistance.
Exactly. You know, I'm sure a lot of people right now are thinking, they just heard you say that and they're like, yeah, I thought when it was a state park, it was like, okay, save that one, on to the next. And that doesn't sound like it's the case at all. So if someone wanted to keep tabs on what's happening in their local park, where should they go from information, like friends of groups or monitor some kind of local, like what would you recommend they go to find out and to keep abreast of what's happening in their local parks?
Yeah, I would definitely start with friends groups because they usually have their finger on the pulse the most. Sometimes people in the department aren't necessarily allowed to speak up about what's going on. And so, I mean, there were times when I didn't feel like I had a full voice. You know, we all try to push as hard as we can when we are department employees, but that isn't always necessarily the source that you're going to be able to find. But your friends groups are free to speak their minds, and they will. So that's your best place to start with any park that has a good active friends group. You also can look at the Parks Foundation. They often how they really help lead the charge against the power line in Anza-Borrego and also the toll road through San Onofre. And so they often put into their newsletters stories about some of these threats to parks. Sometimes it'll be, activities that a county supervisor's doing. In the case of the dairy, Friends of Allensworth are the ones that got wind of it. And then they were activating their base that is largely down in Los Angeles, people who know and love that park. So then they got active and started busing up to the legislature to complain to the legislature. So yeah, you want to, I'd say, start with the friends groups, and also keep an eye on county supervisor decisions, on city decisions, things along the boundaries, because sometimes things will be put along the boundaries that really can affect the park. And the department isn't always free to speak up against it.
Mm-hmm. So, and for those of you who are like, oh, I don't have a friends group for my park, maybe it's time for you to create one, because these friends groups, these nonprofit partners that I'm familiar with out of our park, they are so valuable. Humboldt Redwood Interpretive Association and Save the Redwood League has done incredible things for parks, and they are open for everybody to join, donate to, volunteer with. And so if you want to take an active role with parks, but you don't necessarily need a job with parks, check these nonprofit partners out, because they do have opportunities for you. Ruth, thank you so much for everything you do. And I just want to invite you back for a longer interview, because I feel like you have a lot to offer people, and you've been offering it to people all these years. And I just want to thank you for that. And thank you for continuing and not running out of steam. Like, you're just really, really going. So maybe you could also tell us about do you do yoga, you meditate, eat good food? Well, how do you keep all this energy? We would love to know. So, thank you so much.
Anytime. It was great fun. Nice to see you.
Awesome. So Teresa Baker. So like I've told you guys, Teresa Baker and I have known each other and collaborated for years. And Teresa's very often in the parks hiking and talking to people. So when she's come up and visited me, we've like drove through campgrounds together, and we've like stopped and talked to people. So she likes to have her finger on the pulse of the community and what people are thinking and going to the parks, and it's been a real blessing. Erin, are we able to see Teresa on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, because I'm still seeing you.
Yeah,
so
I'm here.
Okay, there she is. So Teresa goes hiking everywhere. So she has a on the ground perspective as well as an overarching perspective. And so Teresa said, what is something, when you're out or whatever, what is something that you see that people can help with in our parks?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
I think what we as park stewards can do is practice, the concepts around, leave no trace and recreate responsibly. I think we play a vital role in the upkeep of these parks, because as mentioned earlier, park staff is just spread thin right now. So we have to do our part to help keep these parks clean and make sure we are being cognizant of especially fire use in these parks. With the 4th of July coming up, we want to make sure that people aren't in these parks using fireworks. It's small things like that. Perhaps we don't, think about it often. We think, oh, there'll be someone to come behind me and clean up. No, that's your responsibility. What we take in, we take out for the most part. That's what we should do. That's what we can do to help park staff across the board, be it regional parks, state parks, national parks. Make sure we are doing our part to keep these parks as clean and as safe as possible, especially when it comes to fire use around the campfire and throughout. Making sure that we are aware of the tracks that we leave as human beings.
And, for those of you who aren't aware, Teresa is speaking to something that hits really close to home with everyone in California because of our terrible wildfire seasons we've had. But we lost we didn't lose it, but we lost a lot of very old historical infrastructure in Big Basin Park last year, which was one of our oldest parks. And it just destroyed some irreplaceable stuff, historical stuff. And it burnt all these trees and it destroyed bridges. And it's very, very expensive to recreate that. And so because of the situation we're in with the droughts and climate change and fuel buildup, it only takes someone not being responsible, like she said with the campfire, to like change the landscape, the recreational landscape, the economic landscape, the ecological landscape of our parks. And so, yes, please be aware that as a park steward, as a park visitor, that you really have the power to help us protect our parks. And it's, with the trash, what she was talking about, the maintenance spread thing, we've got budget cuts. And so we have a lot less people than we did last year, but more people are visiting the parks than ever. So we love, like Teresa, what you said is perfect. Please, people, like if you can help us with the trash, that would be really, really cool. And those of you who aren't throwing trash, thank you so much. I expected there to be a lot more trash with the increased tourists, but there's not. It's this, it's pretty much the same. So thank you all.
Yeah. I think there are small things that we can do. I have a lot of people reach out to me and say, well, I couldn't find a ranger to lead me on a hike. I didn't know where I was going. Prepare before you go.
Mm-hmm.
Find out about these park trails because, staff is light right now, especially in the summer. And, I was listening to the news and they were talking about just a 4-hour wait just to freaking get into a national park. You're not even in there yet. You're just waiting in line for 4 hours just to get in. So these parks are crowded, they're understaffed. So we have to be prepared when we go in, make sure we bring in, enough water. It's heating up outside. Make sure we're taking care of ourselves as if no one's going to be around to help us.
Yeah.
That's what I think we need to do is prepare to take care of ourselves in the event that rangers aren't around.
Because it's our park. I want, and part of the introduction, the bio introduction of Teresa, in case you missed it, she was talking about coming from a place where when we think about parks, not mine, not yours, but ours. And I love that, Teresa, because it is ours. The parks are public places. They belong to everyone. And so when you come there, when you come here or another park, if you come in there with like, this is our shared, beautiful, awesome space, let's keep it cool. Let's keep it looking good and clean. And if we all have that attitude, and a lot of people do, thank you very much, because I see you guys who come here with so much respect and love for this place. And I really appreciate that. And I hope that attitude spreads to people that may not have that or didn't know that they should think that way. They think, oh, parks aren't mine. No, parks are yours. So
Right. Your tax dollars go to protect these spaces. Your tax dollars pay the salaries in our national parks. Everyone from superintendents to the directors, our tax dollars pay their salaries. So these spaces belong to us. But with that ownership, we have a responsibility to keep them up and not just look to the next person. Oh, that ranger will come along and clean up our campsite that we trashed. I can hear, rangers, cussing in their head when they want to run across, trash. And they're like, well, imagine if every campground was left like this. So we have to be cognizant of what we leave behind. So practice the leave no trace components and the recreate responsibly components. That will help our parks. That's what we can do.
And folks, you can go to lnt.org for Leave No Trace information. Also, they're going to be here tabling with us at Humboldt-Redwoods State Park on August 6th, and Teresa's going to be there too. If you want to follow Teresa, there's a million ways you can follow Teresa, but if you want to see where she goes and get an idea of where maybe a nice outing would be, because Teresa goes a lot of places, knows about a lot of places, Teresa Baker on Instagram. And then also her work to make sure everybody feels welcome through diversity, inclusion, and equity in all public spaces, and feels good and empowered to be part of every single process and conversation, go to In Solidarity. Is it on insolidarity.project.com? And you can see the wonderful work that she's been doing. Teresa, thank you so much for not just helping everybody and being lots of different people's mentor, but also helping me understand how I can be a better steward. Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Miss Erin Gates. Speaking of people who have taught me a lot, when I first became an interpreter, I had been working since I was 18 in the field doing trails and salmon habitat restoration and firefighting and all this stuff. And so when they told me how to do stuff on technology, I was hoping they were talking about a chainsaw, and that's not what they were talking about. They were talking about phones and programs, software and computers and all kinds of stuff. And I felt like a Neanderthal. And Erin came in to rescue me, not just about technology, but also how to talk to all kinds of different people of different ages. And it was a much blessing to me. But we've also talked quite a bit about something she's very, very passionate about, and that's getting people involved in parks, feeling like they belong there and having something to do. So Erin, what can people do to help our parks?
Well, Griff, that is a great question. And before I launch into that, I just also want to say thank you for including my voice on this powerhouse panel of female women that I'm humbled by, I am inspired by, and I want to be more like. So I don't know how I got here, but I'm grateful to be here. So thank you.
And Americans, you're awesome.
Well, and in a way, like, that's actually a perfect place to say, how did I get here on this panel? I got here on this panel because a couple of years ago, I went ahead and thought that maybe I should volunteer to be a board member on a national organization. And then my other voice in my head was like, no, you don't have any place. They don't want to hear what you have to say. But then thankfully the battle between the two voices, the good one, she won. And that's me, by the way. But I nominated myself to run for a national board. And a couple months later, I'm on the national board for the National Association for Interpretation. And a year or so later, I wanted to be more involved in helping California state parks, but not in the capacity as an employee, because as Ruth mentioned, I have some limitations there, but I could be a part of helping California state parks by joining a board. And so I joined the California State Park Rangers Association board. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, you know, you started with a quote from JFK, right? Ask not what your parks can do for you, but what you can do for your parks. And I'm gonna just double down, and I'm gonna throw out a quote from Gandhi and say that we all have an opportunity to be the change that we wish to see.
Yes.
And the only way we can be the change that we wish to see is if we're in it. Like, we're inside, we're in the mix. You cannot be in the know if you are not in the flow. So double down, throw yourself into parks however you can. Teresa mentioned one way you can throw yourself into parks is by just getting out in parks and treating parks as respectfully as you would want people to treat your home. And Ruth mentioned how you can get involved by figuring out what's going on in parks, staying in the know. And I just say, the more time that you spend in parks, the more you're going to be equipped to help protect them. So whether that's actually getting a job with state parks or county parks or city parks or national parks, or just volunteering, we need some help. Parks really, really need help. We will never have enough staff. If we continue to increase access to parks, which is our goal, right? So everybody wants to come to parks. We will never have enough staff to manage all of that increase in access. So what do we rely on? Is we rely on these incredible, amazing people that choose to give up their free time to come into our parks and provide education or help with trail restoration or do trash pickups. You know, there's so many ways that you can be involved in your parks. And the more you're involved, the more you're going to be able to help us protect them, because they are your parks, they are my parks, they are Griff's parks and Ruth's parks and Teresa's parks. And the more we treat them as our parks, the more we're going to be able to protect them for future generations.
Mm-hmm. And that is beautiful. And the volunteerism, the stewardship, how we can get involved, this whole theme through here, it was exactly what I wanted to happen and want people to know. And I love that you said you had that battle in your head, because we all have those kinds of battles in our head, and especially when we're about to try to get involved with something that's really big and we think, oh, I'm too small. But you know, we have to get out into these parks and we have to behave like they're all of ours and that we have a responsibility. And it's fun and it's rewarding and it feels good. And that's why we all do it, because we know it's the right thing to do. Thank you very, very much, Erin. That was awesome. Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you very much, Ruth. Thanks for all your work, and thanks for being accessible to do this, and being humble about this, and letting people know that all of us can do something on some level. And if you want to learn about more volunteer opportunities, you can learn them from the California State Parks webpage, or you can learn them from your own local parks webpage. Look for friends groups, as Ruth was saying, and really keep your finger on the pulse of your local park. Be like Teresa and go out in them and get a ground eye view of like what needs to be fixed, because that's the best way you'll know how to help, is that you'll be familiar. And whenever you're familiar with something, you care about it, understand it more, and want to take compassionate action, like these three outdoors leaders have. So thank you very much for coming on our centennial anniversary speaker series, you three. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Griff. Happy 100th anniversary, Humboldt Redwoods State Park.
Yay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.